Hello Caribbean family, and once again welcome to the Enlightened Path. For those of you who are joining me for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the video, and for those of you who are returning to see the topic that we'll be covering today on attachment theory, I'm your host Hadassah. I'm a life coach and I'm a hypnotherapist, and this channel is all about you living your best self. It's all about you walking in purpose. It's all about you being in attunement with who you are. So in the last episode, we explored secure attachment, and we mentioned that this is where individuals feel safe, where they feel valued, where they feel confident in their relationships. Now, if you haven't watched that video, I think it's best you put a pin in this one and then you go back and you watch that video to understand like the foundations, the basis of attachment theory, whether it's an healthy attachment or whether it is an unhealthy attachment. Now, if you didn't get a chance to watch that video, in that video we mentioned about how people with secure attachments function. They trust their partner, they set healthy boundaries for themselves, they communicate openly and effectively, and we also talk about how they handle conflict. They handle conflict with maturity and resilience. The secure attachment was formed when the caregiver was very consistent. Now today's topic is the anxious attachment. I'm so in love with this topic because I can recall telling you guys in the last episode that I once had an unhealthy attachment, and this was the attachment style that I had. I was anxiously attached. Now, when somebody has an anxious attachment style, there's this underlying theme that governs how they behave within a relationship. It's that fear of abandonment that is the theme. The fear of losing people, losing friendships. In a secure attachment, you don't need to be afraid of anything. You allow yourself, you allow life to take you to the right people and all these good stuff. So an anxious attachment can have you doing the most in a relationship or in a friendship just to keep it going. Now, what is anxious attachment? Let's pretty much start there. So the anxious attachment can also be called preoccupied attachment. For most of the people who watch me on a weekly basis, I send out a quiz for you to do about your attachment style. This has benefited me so much. This is why you're hearing about attachment style today, because of a lot of us don't have a healthy attachment. Nothing is wrong with us, right? This is not to say because I don't have a secure attachment something is wrong with me. It's not facts at all. It's just for you to understand how you attach and where it came from. It can potentially come from a place where you of yourself was not fully responsible for that. So it's all about you embracing where you are right now in this very moment and change to a more secure attachment. And in an anxious attachment, so after you do the quiz, before I go to that, to dive into more on the anxious attachment, if you did the quiz, you would know that sometimes it doesn't always say anxious attachment. It is sometimes called preoccupied attachment. And like I said, this attachment style is deeply rooted in fear of abandonment, and it requires a whole lot of reassurance in a relationship, which is too much work for anybody. I can say it was too much work for the people that had to deal with that, and it's too much work for me to deal with somebody with that attachment style. It's just a lot of work, right? Because you always have to be validating them, telling them good things, always making them feel like the relationship is not going anywhere because they have that abandonment issue, right? So So people with this attachment style, this is how it shows up. To tell you the truth, they really feel insecure about their relationships. Nothing is wrong with them. Sometimes they can be very beautiful. Sometimes they can have a good job. Sometimes they have themselves. Nothing is wrong with them, but that insecurity, all right, that insecurity that they're carrying around shows up more so in a romantic relationship. You can find that when they're in a romantic relationship, they're very clingy, like clingy, and overly dependent, all right? Overly dependent on their partners, and sometimes it can be burdensome for that partner to always have to, like I said earlier, the constant reassuring, and you always have to be with them, and you have to message them all the time, and you have to call all the time. And then they're highly sensitive. Oh my gosh, I remember, sensitive to signs of rejection. Let me tell you something. In a relationship, sometimes your partner can just be telling you, or a friend can be saying something to you for you to just improve yourself, and this become like a whole triggering situation where the individual believes as though they are being rejected. Now, how does anxious attachment develop? So all attachments form in childhood, not just the anxious attachment, all of them. And remember what I mentioned about the secure attachment. In the secure attachment, the caregiver, the primary caregiver, that is the person that was responsible for taking care of the child, was very, very consistent, and the needs of that child was always met. So the child grows up believing that there's safety and security in the world. Now, in an anxious situation here, the primary caregiver, which could be not just the parent, sometimes there's a guardian, sometimes there's a grandparent, whoever is taking up that responsibility to cater for that child, the way they respond to the needs of the child was usually very inconsistent. Sometimes they were available and loving, and they were nurturing, and they showed that child love. Other times they were distant and or unpredictable, so it created a space where you don't know what is happening. You don't know when you're going to get it, or you don't know if it's going to come. So when these individuals grow up and they develop romantic relationships, what we find happening, as what was happening with me, I remember I was so over vigilant to the point where you're waiting for the person to mess up. You're waiting for them to make that wrong move, because that life is always going to be like this, because that is how the brain developed from that early childhood, that something is going to go wrong, and there's unpredictability. Even if it can be even if it's a wholesome relationship, you tend to feel that way, right? To be honest, when it happens in childhood, this particular type of attachment creates uncertainty, and this is what shows up in your adult relationships. And in the child, it makes the child craves reassurance and fear rejection. So the child is just waiting for that breadcrumb moment where they're able to receive that love and that affection. They're waiting for that, and if it doesn't come, they feel like if they're not loved, they feel like if they have been rejected by their parent. And that is exactly how we function when we are in romantic relationships as well as friendships. There could be more. If you know of others, you can help me out. You can put it in the comments. You can inbox me privately and let's start a conversation. But some of the signs I know of anxious attachments in adults, like what I look for in someone, or what I was able to identify within myself. Sometimes you might be over analyzing texting interactions. It's not even that serious, but sometimes you're over analyzing it. What does this mean? What is the tone? What was he thinking? What was she thinking when they were sending this to me? and that is not healthy. Sometimes a text message or whatever medium of communication you're using, sometimes a person responds to you and not in the time frame that you anticipated, and you're like, why did they take so long to respond? Were they with somebody else? Were they messaging somebody else? Is it that they don't like me anymore? Which that is why the anxious is often called preoccupied as well, because it's all mental. Like, you create ideas in your mind of things that is not even happening. In the anxious attachment, there's a storyline that is going on in the mind that is not even true, right? And the other sign it show up, I mentioned before, but it's the fear of being abandoned and rejected. Even when it's not a real threat, the person can be make you feel very safe. They can be doing everything that they're doing, but you have this thing at the back of your mind where everything seems like something when it is not. Okay? And also, from what I can remember from myself, is the need for constant reassurance. Oh, do you still love me? Oh, you don't tell me that I look beautiful. You don't tell me that you love me. You don't say these things. Even though they may be showing it in so many other ways, is that need for constant reassurance. And mind you, reassurance is healthy in a relationship. Reassurance is very, very, very healthy. But when it becomes like a burden for the person to have to always fill that void within you, and then you always have, oh my gosh, you always have that. I'm just remembering, I'm so happy I was able to work on this. I'm so happy I was able to move to a more secure attachment, and I'm still working on myself. But like, I'm remembering difficulty trusting, even when there were no signs of infidelity. Whew, my gosh. Memories. You always feel like if the person is doing something, or they're talking to somebody or something. You have a dream. I remember having this dream and it was like I was sure my partner was cheating on me because of this dream. It's all part of the anxious attachment, and that dream can also be your subconscious at play because of that fear of abandonment, that fear of rejection, so it plays out when we are asleep. And another thing I can recall from the anxious attachment was there is this emotional highs and low where you feel happy when you're close but anxious when you're apart. So when you're happy with the person, when you're with the person, you are very, very happy and you feel so reassured and you feel like this is the best relationship. But the moment that you're separated from that person, you start to feel anxious and the mind starts to play tricks on you. I'm going to teach you some tools on how you can work around that. But I gotta tell you, this is real things. This is experiences that I've had. I'm sharing with you. Right? And also, and this is the part that I had to work on first, sacrificing my personal needs just to keep the relationship, because you cannot keep someone who doesn't want to be kept. And I was telling a client of mine only yesterday, I was telling that person that and a friend, I end up telling two individuals the same thing. I was saying to them that the person who are supposed to be in your life cannot go anywhere. They cannot get away from you. They cannot disappear on you. They will always be there. You just have to trust the process. They can't go away. I gotta tell you, they can't go anywhere. They will always be there for you. So you don't have to sacrifice your needs to keep the relationship. You don't have to do it. You just have to be yourself. Show up as your authentic self and the right persons will love you. Trust me. Trust me. Trust me when I tell you this. Now, the impact of the anxious attachment on relationships. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Now, what can happen in this situation that it can lead to codependency, where you have not developed a sense of independence, and not just physically, right? But I can tell you, this person that you have this unhealthy attachment to, they are dictating how you feel. They're dictating if you're happy. They're dictating if you're sad. They're dictating how well you perform at work. They are dictating your entire life for you. They don't plan to do that. It's not their responsibility to do that for you. But because of who you are and how the brain was wired, you allow them to do that. And they're not doing anything bad to you either, right? But you are just allowing this particular situation or individual to dictate how you feel. And I'm asking you to claim back your power. You decide how you want to feel. The jealousy and so on, all these things can be difficult in maintaining a healthy relationship with your partner. And I'm gonna do a friend of mine sent me his results, and he said, I'm the avoidant and my partner is anxious. And this is the dynamic. The next podcast I'll be covering is the avoidant partner. And in that podcast, I would like to link the two relationships. There is a link between the anxious and the avoidant partner that draws them close together, right? And it creates a push-pull dynamic. I don't want to talk about it now, but I'm gonna talk about it in the next episode. So what we gotta do, we gotta heal. If you have a anxious attachment style, baby, you have to heal. You need to stay. I hope you do the quiz. Please do the quiz. And if you find out that you have this attachment style, the very first thing that you need to do is self-awareness. I believe I'm so big on self-awareness because that is what kickstarted my journey. Me being aware of my flaws, my insecurities, all the things that I felt inadequate about. I had to become aware of that in an effort to overcome. All right. And also on the topic of self-awareness, you have to be aware of your patterns. You have to know what triggers the fears that you're carrying around. What are those fears that you have? Do I know that they're fears? What are these feelings that are coming up inside of me? Do I know that they're triggers so I can start my healing process? You have to know first. Okay, you have to know first before you can start putting in the work. And the second thing that I did, I had to build self-worth because I was lacking so much in that area. Building myself up, my self-esteem, my self-concept, all these things was really low. And I had to learn the hard way to validate my own emotions. Make myself feel exactly how I want to feel, right? Yesterday, I was doing a talk at the women's conference online virtual. And one of the biggest things, the impact I wanted to leave with the ladies was to find things that make you happy and do them when you are unhappy. Okay? You have to know. You have to be able to master yourself for yourself. When you rely on external validation, you are dependent on somebody else, and that is a whole lot of power to give to someone. That is a whole lot of power to give to someone, and I can safely say you will regret doing that. Learn how to validate yourself. Learn how to make yourself feel happy. Have some go-to things that you can go to when you are not feeling 100. What am I gonna do? Do not wait until you feel like crap and then what's next? What do I do? When you do that, you end up going back to your old patterns, your old habits of behavior. You don't want to do that. All right, so learn how to validate yourself. If you have a partner that can support you and they know that this is an issue that you're working with and they're willing to do that, beautiful. If they're willing to support you on your journey of healing, beautiful. But until then, you have to learn, my love, to validate your own emotions. And there's also, let me see, I think you can also practice self-soothing techniques. For example, you can practice mindfulness. Just quiet the mind. And it's so simple. There's no way, there's no art. You don't have to do research. Just sit with yourself and do some breathing. Focus on the breath and calm and soothe your nervous system. Because sometimes you're making the situation a mountain out of a molehill. It is probably not even that serious. And you want to also ensure that you are not reacting when you are overstimulated, because what all these feelings and all these emotions would do is make you feel overstimulated. So what you want to do is practice self-soothing stuff, like I mentioned, mindfulness. One thing that works for me is journaling. I have friends that we usually say, I don't like to write. That is okay. I have an app and it's also on Play Store where it's called audio journaling, where you can journal, okay? Where you can journal all of your thoughts through voice, just like if you're talking to somebody. And what the heck, seek therapy. Seek therapy. Seek out someone who can support you with this. I'm someone who can support you with this. There's many other people who can support you with this. Seek someone who can support you with your attachment style so that you can move to a more healthy attachment style. And I gotta say, the most important thing about your healing journey as an anxious attachment person is setting healthy boundaries. So, because the care and the love was inconsistent during childhood, the anxious attachment believes as if they have to hold on to any little crumb of love that is given to them. Even if it is inconsistent, they don't care, because that is all they know. So what the anxious attachment has to do on their journey of healing and growing is setting healthy boundaries without fear of losing love, because we need the love. Yeah, the anxious attachment wants the love. They want to be validated. They want to feel that love that they never felt when they were younger. So they have this fear embedded in them that they're going to lose something. No, you're not going to lose anything. Set healthy boundaries and the persons who are supposed to be in your life will remain. This is very helpful. And I feel like why this entire series is going to be beneficial is because you are going to also learn, you already learn what a secure attachment looks like. So as someone who's anxiously attached, what you may need in your life when seeking a partner is a partner who has a secure attachment. Alright, so you want to know what that looks like. You want to know how that shows up so that you can choose that person that is securely attached, because even though they may have to deal with you as you go through your phase and your journey, there is so much hope once you're able to do the work. So you become secure and they're secure, your relationship grows and goes to the next level. But if you are anxiously attached, all right, You would also find that if you are with a partner that has an unhealthy attachment, it doesn't matter if it is it doesn't matter if it's an anxious attachment, avoidance, or disorganized. It doesn't matter. Once you have an anxious attachment and you find someone who has any one of the other unhealthy attachment styles, your relationship is going to be very chaotic. Okay, in closing, I just want to let you guys know that healing anxious attachment takes time. It takes time. Nothing is wrong with you. You're not somebody who, okay, well, I have a problem, something is going on with me. No, none of that is true. You were just trained to love in a particular way, and now we're in the process of unlearning and relearning more healthier ways to love and self-trust. Now, next week we will be discussing the avoidance attachment, and I'm going to also let you know the reason. I'm going to spend some time on this and let you know the reason why the anxious is so attached to the avoidance. Okay, and what you might find is a lot of those, what we classify as a toxic relationship, a lot of those relationship has this dynamic where there's the anxious and the avoidant, where there's the pull, where there's the push and the pull. So guys, I just want to let you know, thank you guys, thank you so much for those of you who were able to make it to the end. I just want to say big shout out and big thank you to you guys, and I do hope that this video was beneficial. Once again, I'm Hadassah, I'm a life coach and I'm a hypnotherapist, and I am here to help you to stay on the enlightened path. I love you guys so much. See you next week.